Let's bring in Kentucky Congressman James Comer. He's ranking member of the House Oversight Committee. So they'll argue that, as Nancy Pelosi said, residents of D.C., they pay taxes, they serve in uniform, they contribute to the economic power of the nation. Why shouldn't they be a state? Let's hear what you have to say.
Well, they shouldn't be a state because our founding fathers made it clear they wanted the capital city to be independent of any states. Washington, D.C. is the best represented city in America in Congress. Each member of Congress spends over half their year in Washington, D.C. If Washington, D.C. needs something, then the members of Congress will make sure of it. Plus, the 23rd Amendment gives Washington, D.C. 3 electoral college votes in the presidential election. So pound for pound, Washington, D.C. has more influence than any major city in America on presidential elections.
Okay, but so if you live there, though, like I used to for a long time, members of Congress, like somebody from Kentucky, for example, doesn't necessarily represent my interests in the city. I'm not arguing for D.C. statehood. Right. I'm just saying these are their arguments. If you're a resident there, it seems to make sense to you, to them. I get your point of view in terms of the founding fathers, but the other issue is this leads to, presumably, more Democrats in the Senate and tipping that balance of power.
This vote this week on making Washington, D.C. the 51st state is about one thing: creating 2 new Democrat Senate seats. That's all. We can argue the merits. I can give you dozens of reasons why it's a bad idea. But at the end of the day, it's all about a Democrat political power grab to create 2 new Democrat Senate seats so they can end the filibuster and they can pass all the liberal progressive legislation that Nancy Pelosi's forcing down the throats of the Democrats in the House. So I'm going to do everything in my power to be against this bill, and I think every Republican in both the House and the Senate will vote against D.C. statehood.
Do you see this idea linked to the idea that we talked about last week about packing the court?
Absolutely. When you have Joe Manchin already on the record saying he's not going to support ending the filibuster and he's not inclined to vote to pack the court, then the Democrats realize they need to go to Plan B. And Plan B is to create 2 new Democrat Senate seats. And with respect to representation in Washington, D.C., I'm the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee. Eleanor Norton is on the committee as well. And she is a very vocal member of the committee. So Washington, D.C. has a delegate in Congress. And again, I don't think there's a city in America that's better represented in Congress than Washington, D.C.
Do you hear any rumblings on behalf of Democratic colleagues of yours that might be more moderate that are starting to brace themselves for more of these liberal votes that they're going to have to take?
Yeah, they're scared to death. You know, privately, they're frustrated. They're frustrated that there's no compromise, that the liberals and the squad are running the show, but they're being threatened with primaries. And that's what they're going to do with any senator that's not thinking about going along with Chuck Schumer, any representative that's not thinking about going with Nancy Pelosi. They're going to dangle a primary opponent in front of them. Remember, in the House, Nancy Pelosi can only lose 2 votes right now. If she loses 2 votes, the bill is tied and it fails. So she has no margin to work with here, and we know the Senate's 50-50.
That's why it's so interesting, because then you would think that the moderates would hold more sway and be more powerful right now, and instead it seems like the squad and the far left don't quite get that, what's going on there. We'll see if it changes. James Comer, Kentucky Congressman, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Dana.